about engagement today. So John, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Fantastic. Thanks, Francisco, and welcome everybody to our fourth webinar on evidence-based training. Hopefully many of you have joined before, but I'll just do a quick introduction to the Slido and some of the key things. So the main thing is, if you've got questions during the session, is ask those using the Q&A function. So if you can't see it at the moment, if you go to the bottom right hand corner of your screen, there's 3 dots. If you click that, you should see Q&A, and you can then ask questions, and then we'll as the questions come in and through the different parts of the discussion, particularly the Q&A at the end, we'll take those questions and we'll also take them away afterwards, and if there's anything else we need, we can answer them later on as well. One of the other things to say is, if you have any technical issues, so we know sometimes people have had problems with different browsers. WebEx sometimes does some strange things that we don't understand. So if you have a problem, perhaps try a Chrome browser. We find that works particularly well. If you have a problem with the sound, maybe leave and come back in, and that quite often works as well. If you have any technical problems or questions, please drop them to me in the chat function and not the Q&A. If you accidentally ask a question in the chat instead, I'll just drop you a message to remind you to put it in the Q&A. I think that covers everything at this stage. Feel free to drop us any questions or challenges that you have with the technology through the chat, questions in the Q&A, and back to Francisco, and we'll start the event properly. Thanks, Francisco.
Thank you very much, John. My name is Francisco Arenas. For some of you don't know me, I am the EBT project manager, and before joining in the agency, I am the rulemaking. Basically, my full-time job is to be a rulemaker. I have different projects in EBT, but as well fuel and all-weather operation. And before that, I was a captain in a low-cost carrier. I'm going to start now by sharing my screen with you and trying to get the agenda on. Okay. Sorry, I think I did it in the wrong way. Second. Okay, so again, welcome to the EBT implementation 4th webinar on equivalency of malfunction. The agenda for today, it will be a welcome that I will provide about safety promotion and other relevant stuff for EBT. Then I will kick in with a session 1 on the equivalency of malfunction that it will be from a regulatory point of view, and it will take about 20 minutes. Then we will have questions from the audience, fundamentally related to questions related to equivalency of malfunction, directly addressed by EASA. Remember that we have a session 3 in which we will have more questions to be answered. Focus on the implementation and focus on the experts in the industry like Airbus, Boeing, and the ATPG. The session 2 then will be starting at 14:30 local time, Central European time, and it will be about 45 minutes. It will be presented initially by Albert Macia from Airbus. Airbus will provide a 20 minutes presentation on how they support the equivalency of malfunctions, and then it will be followed by a presentation from Richard Catwell from Boeing. Thank you, Richard, because I know that the time zone is not the most appropriate one for today, and we appreciate that Boeing has accepted our invitation to participate. The presentation of Boeing will take about 15 minutes. And finally, we will do a break at 15:50, about 15 minutes, and then we will join session 3. This is a panel discussion. It's intended to make the audience participate in this discussion. And if you please submit questions, there will be a Q&A button at WebEx in this software that will provide you the availability to make questions, and then that we will be able to answer. We will start with a speech by Christian Norden. Christian is one of the fathers and the godfathers of EBT, since started in Airbus and in ICAO, followed by IATA. So he will give us some background of the equivalency of malfunctions. And then there will be a discussion, as I said, in which we hope that the audience is very active and participate, in which we will answer questions and discuss about the implementation of equivalency of malfunction. Finally, at about 16:20 Central European time, we will finish with some closing remarks from the EASA Safety Promotion, Head of Safety Promotion, John Franklin. And we expect to finish about 16:30 Central European time. That means 15:30 GMT. So welcome to this presentation. And I will start with the Ops community and the welcome. So I would like to highlight that if you go to Google and you press EASA Ops Community, you will find a very useful website in which you can join. You can create your own account, and there we provide very nice information, fundamentally focus on safety and safety promotion and implementation issues. Especially for air operations, you can go here, air operations, and then topics. Click fly operations, and here you will have several posts. The one that we, for the topic of EBT, you have one here, evidence-based training, and then if you find this option too difficult, then you just put EASA Ops Community, and then you put EBT, and then it will go directly to that post that I mentioned. Here in this evidence-based training Ops Community, as I said, you can register it, but it doesn't need to be registered. You can just pop in here and access the information. You will have all the relevant information about other events, new events coming, and especially, as you know, this webinar will be recorded. In a few days' time, we will post the recording of this webinar in here. You have from the last one that we did, third webinar, but you also have the second webinar and the first webinar that we started in June 2021. Not all the videos from previous webinar are available due to data protection or some intellectual property issues, but most of them you have it, and that will be for certain this one on the fourth EBT webinar. I will also like to announce that soon we will post the registration for the fifth webinar. At the moment is today's webinar, but in a few days we will post the registration for the fifth webinar that will take place on the 24th March 2022, and it will be dedicated to instructor concordance. So please keep watching this website. If you don't want to go so frequently, then you just can become a member and then you can activate the bell and subscribe and all those kind of things, in which you will be duly informed about the latest posts and events we are putting up. So without more here, obviously, if you have any questions about the Ops community, just let us know, and we will answer further in this webinar. So I will kick in with our webinar today. Before starting the equivalency of malfunction, I would like to highlight some background information that it may be relevant to you, and in order to understand fully the equivalency of malfunction. Traditionally speaking, in the FSTD and the training in the FSTD, we've been focusing in the systems. As you see, a real event, it only not happen only because of a system, but it happens in an operational context and in an environment, weather environment, for example. And that it will create or will produce an event in which the pilot needs to handle. When we were studying the data at the beginning of the rulemaking task and in preparation of the rulemaking task, we realized that more and more the operational context and the environment play a significant role when an event occurs. In fact, some of the events doesn't have a system-related, it's not a system-related event, but it might be more an operational context event and environment event. Therefore, the EBT program tries to focus much more on the operational event and on the operational context and the environment, and that is part of the of some information that you need to have in mind when we discuss today's equivalency of malfunction. As you know, the equivalency of malfunction only requires 7 events, system events during a year, while we allow this time in the FSTD to focus on the operational context and to contextualize that system event, that system malfunction, with much more enriched operational context and environment. So equivalency of malfunction, and before jump into the regulation, I would like to give you a little bit of some ideas about a mixed implementation for the equivalency of malfunction and baseline. The equivalency of malfunction in EBT mix, and most of the industry today is in a mixed situation, is not formally required to address a fully equivalency of malfunction during EBT mixed. There are some entry levels in order to get into the EBT baselines. There are detailed in AMC 1 or OFC 231 paragraph alpha. And in that AMC, you will see that, in fact, the equivalency of malfunction only requires 1 year before joining the EBT baseline. So you have basically a few years before you really need to start getting worried about equivalency of malfunction during mixed implementation, and you can use your system program, your malfunction program that you traditionally do in your legacy training. So when you join the EBT mix, don't rush into the equivalency of malfunction. Take your time, because it's not required during the EBT mix. It will be required in the EBT baseline, as I said, and during the EBT mix, let's say it's a free process, while in the EBT baseline is a regulated process. In both cases, I will recommend, whether you start a little bit later and you start more in a free process during the EBT mix, or when you are in the regulated environment in the EBT baseline. In both cases, please follow the recommendations produced by the manufacturer. We have today 2 important manufacturers that will discuss about that. So this is covered in the regulation as a GM, but also you have several indications in the EBT checklist, both for EBT mixed and for EBT baseline. So follow that guidance that we have produced and follow the guidance of the manufacturer when you start your equivalency of malfunctions. Now let's give a little bit of background, a regulatory background. In the legacy regulation, detailing AMC 1 or OFC 230, Regulation 965, in paragraph alpha 4, India alpha, you have this text in which I highlighted all major failures of aircraft system will need to be covered in a preceding 3-year period. That means that you will go into your system informations and you will, as an operator, you will decide together with the authority all major failures of aircraft system. Again, the manufacturer will produce guidance and will give you that information to assess the major failures of aircraft system. You will make, let's say, a list of malfunctions, and all of those major malfunctions will be covered in the FSTT. If those are not covered because are not considered to be major failures, then you will go to the classroom and in AMC 1 or OFC 230, paragraph alpha, ground training, you will need to cover those malfunctions there. So that's the past and the legacy system. Now let's discuss about the EBT baseline regulation detailing ROFC 231.4. Basically, we start by saying that each pilot needs to receive in the assessment and training topics, they need to be address the management of aircraft system malfunctions. We detail that for the FSTD and in the equivalency of malfunction context, only those that place a significant demand on our proficient crew shall be organized by reference to the EBT characteristics. We will discuss later on, maybe in the panel, and maybe our guest will discuss about what it means, specifically significant demand on our proficient crew. I will, in my presentation, will detail some of GMs that explain this a little bit further, but from a high-level point of view, I will expect that this will be discussed later on. So then you need to assess and analyze your malfunctions and detail in 5 characteristics. Each pilot will need to be trained in one malfunction for each characteristics. That doesn't mean that it will be 5 characteristics and therefore 5 malfunctions, because some of the malfunctions require to be trained both in pilot flying and pilot non-flying. That means those are 2 characteristics, and specifically are degradation of aircraft control and loss of instrumentation. That means that, let's say, you need to do it twice. So one as a pilot flying, one as a pilot non-flying. That means each of them are 2 plus the other 3 characteristics, 3. So in total, you will be required to do 7 malfunctions a year. Also, there's an important element that the demonstration of proficiency in the management of one malfunction is considered to be equivalent, and the demonstration of that proficiency for other malfunctions. So that, let's say, allow more time in the simulator and in the program to focus on the operational context and the environment, as I mentioned before. Regarding the AMC, here the most important AMC of all probably is this AMC 1 or OFC 231 Fostruct, which details the process and explains how you need to do the equivalency of malfunction. So the first step will be to review the malfunctions as provided by the manufacturer, and then determine the list of malfunctions that place a significant demand on a proficient crew, isolated from an environment or operational context. This is important because the context, the operational context and the environment context will be then put in during the EBT program. But initially, you need to remove all operational context and environment. And there are more information in a GM3 or FC 231 in which we will explain what we mean, because this is a two-step process. I mentioned at the beginning that we want more time to detail the operational context, but at the same time now here in step 2, we are saying to remove. This is just for the study and the understanding of the significant demand on a proficient crew, how the malfunction puts a significant demand on a proficient crew. So when you do this study, please isolate it from the operational context and the environment, because later on in the program, you will need to put that operational context back again and environment. Then you assess the characteristics of each of the malfunctions that puts a significant demand on a proficient crew. And then finally, you developed your program on the FSTD. The equivalency of malfunction, the malfunction that puts a significant demand on a proficient crew, but doesn't have a space in the FSTD program, because as I said, the minimum ones are 7. So you may have more than 7 per year that puts a significant demand on a proficient crew. Then you will need to include in a knowledge, procedural knowledge environment, which is less qualified, but suitably as an alternative environment. There are further guidance that will be produced in the EASA EBT manual. Unfortunately, this manual will be published next quarter. However, I expect some questions, and probably some people will try to understand what we mean with this AMC, specifically paragraph Charlie, and we are welcome to questions about this. So in summary, what the regulation says is you go to your list of equivalent of provided by the manufacturer, you know, your AFM or whatever document you have, in which you detail all the malfunctions. You assess whether it's a significant demand or not. Remember that you have a GM1 that explains what it means, significant demand, GM1 or FC 231 Foxtrot. You determine whether if it's a yes, then you those malfunctions, you analyze the characteristics and you categorize by characteristics. You decide which ones are going to the FSTD. If those that are going to the FSTD is done, or those ones that are not going to the FSTD, then you need to find a less qualified and less an equivalent, less. The regulation says a less qualified or less an environment suitable, but less qualified in terms of FSTD qualification. And you will need to analyze there whether it's a ground training, as a classroom, a presentation, or FNMPT or whatever. Okay, for those ones that are not significant demand on a proficient crew, then that will go on the ground training as you normally do. So the idea is that today we move from a classroom and theoretical knowledge training and FSTD training to this is how we train the malfunctions today, and we hope to move into a much more enriched environment in which you do some classroom and theoretical knowledge, but you also use other devices, other environments, and then only the most important malfunctions, or the ones that you analyze through the characteristics that are more relevant for your operational context and your environment and your operational risk, are those ones that are introducing the FSTD. So you will see somehow something like I presented in the pipes, you know. So a much more enriched environment using the FSTD only in the most efficient way, or in a way that it will be much more appropriate. So with this, my presentation is finished, and now I will look at the questions.
No questions yet, Francisco.
Okay, let me check the chat.
No, nothing there either. Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have any questions.
No, nothing yet in either the chat. Nothing came through in the chat or the Q&A.
Okay. I give the floor to I'm gonna wait maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, I am receiving some questions. Thank you. So Bruno Espurio has provided a question. 1 second, I'm gonna open the question here. I need to make it a little bit bigger. So the question from Bruno is the manufacturer required to classify all the malfunctions in terms of the associated characteristics, or only the ones that play a significant demand on a proficient crew? So from a regulatory point of view, and this is a good question for the panel, from a regulatory point of view, you only need to classify the characteristics to those malfunctions that put a significant demand on a proficient crew. So only those that you decided that put a significant demand on a proficient crew. There are several ways to do this from a regulatory point of view. Obviously, the first point of contact is the manufacturer. The manufacturers, the ones that we invited today, has provided. They will explain their guidance and the way they provide support on this matter. If you are from a manufacturer that doesn't provide any guidance, especially some of the old type ratings, then we recommend the Delphi process, in which you set up your instructors, or subject matter experts, and then you list all the malfunctions, all of them that you have in that specifically type rating, and then you ask them to whether say if there's a significant demand on a proficient crew. There are different ways. You can be very binary on this, say yes or no, or we recommend that through the Delphi process, you, let's say, categorize 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. You ask those instructors, and then once you have all the malfunctions determined by 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, then you decide a cut, 2.5, 3, 1, and then you take only those equivalency, those malfunctions, and then you go through the characteristics. But this is detailed in Delphi. There are other ways to do that. The important matter is that once you have determined the significant demand on a proficient crew, only to those ones is the ones that you need to, let's say, associate the characteristics. So that's the question from Bruno. I don't know if we have more questions. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, we have one now in the Q&A.
Yeah. Okay. Let me
read it. Do you want me to read it for you, or you got it?
I prefer to open it up here. So if you give me 1 second, I will try to open it up. Yeah, I am unable to open it up, John. So if
I can read the question. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So it's a question from PJ. He says, would it be possible to do partly EBT recurrent training in a training level D environment? Do you estimate that the course design could be tailored to allow this?
Okay, I guess it's talking about an FSTD level D environment, correct?
Yeah.
If I am wrong, Mr. De Jager, please let us know if I am understanding incorrectly your question. So FSTD level D. So the regulation ROFC 231, there's an AMC, I think it's paragraph echo, in which we detail that the FSTD training needs to be in a level C or D. That's the minimum level for the FSTD. Now, if you are talking about, because there is only requires 7 malfunctions. If you are requiring of the alternative environment in which you also need to train the procedural knowledge that you need to train the other malfunctions, then this is open and there's no prescriptive requirement on the level of the FNMPT, FSTD, classroom or something. So I don't know if I addressed your question correctly. Let us know, because we can give you the floor to speak, Mr. De Jager.
So he says the level, refers to the training level as per FSTS.
Then I need to invite him to speak, and then maybe I need the help from Albert, because I think he's referring to the document of Airbus. So can you give the
yeah,
give him
I
the floor?
just hold on a second. I'll just. Oh no.
Good afternoon.
Hello, can you hear us? Okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you fine. Welcome.
Thank you. No, it's just a general concept which is going around, is that it would be possible in the future, and I saw this question popping up as well, is that part of the EBT recurrent training, if it would be tailored correctly, it is not training level E, which training level E requires motion, for example. So it's just a general question for the experts. Do they estimate that in the future that part of the EBT recurrent training will be done not in the full simulator, so the level D that you are referring to? Okay,
so yes, good question. Let me answer from a regulatory point of view, and in the explanatory note of the ED decision 2021-002R, published in March 2021, you have more explanation about this, because this is a question that we received many times, and it was discussed during the rulemaking group. So in the regulatory level, there's an AMC that obliges, as you said in paragraph echo, oblige full flight sims, Charlie or at least level Charlie or above. Now, this is located, the regulation is mainly done as an AMC about this topic with something in mind, okay? The purpose is, first, we allow, obviously, in the future, alternative means of compliance, and then also to be flexible in the regulation, that if the agency finds that there will be new FSTDs that will fit for purpose in the context of EBT and in the context of the rulemaking task 0196 that we are developing, in which the MPA was published last year, and there are several working packages that will go on, then we foresee in the future the possibility to, let's say, amend quickly, rather quickly, the regulation to allow other FSTDs. Today, it's not allowed, so you need to concentrate in a full flight sim Charlie or Delta. Yes, in the future there are discussions about that. We need to wait. Two things. One is the rulemaking task 0196 with the different working package. As you know, this rulemaking task provides significant developments, for example, with the virtual reality, some virtual reality FSTD from Robinson, from a Swiss company, in which we are starting to allow in some places, in some training, virtual reality kind of FSTDs. But at the moment, for EBT, the technology is simply not there. There are several issues at the moment that we are working with the industry, and the technology is simply not there. But the moment it is, and we will assess this continuously, then we may allow in the long-term future, I mean, you need to think about at least 5 years, that we will maybe we may allow other other types of FSTD. As I said, this is not a close discussion because what I said about the 5 years time, it might be shorter depending on how the technology is evolving and how the rulemaking task 0196 is evolving as well. But at the moment in EBT, we only allow full flight sim Charlie and Delta. The minimum time is 36 hours as well. And then the other training that you provide in addition to those 36 hours in the full flight sim, then obviously can be discussed with your authority, and let's say is less regulated or is not regulated. So therefore, there's a bunch of options for you. So that, from a regulatory point of view, covers my discussion. I don't know if anybody from the panelists would like to add some more information about it. We have 7 minutes more. Anybody wants to raise the hand? No? Then I will move on to another question, because I think we received other questions, John?
We did. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, the next question says, thanks for the presentation. Could you please tell us more about the relationship between the characteristics, immediacy, complexity, etc., and the table of assessment and training topics?
Correct. Okay, then maybe it's better that I show the regulation here. That will be, so this is the regulation. You can find this in EC Access Rules. So yeah, press in Google EC Access Rules, EASA Ops, and then you will have this document. It's super easy to find it. In the assessment and training topic, you need to go to Oro FC 232. You go to your generation. I don't know what is the generation of the gentleman. I'm going to assume that it's generation 4, if you don't mind. But as I said, choose your generation, and then you will, in this example, generation 4 jet. If you go to the section where it details section 4, training topics, from section 4, training topics, here is going to be A, but there are other ones that it will be B, and you will have some equivalency of malfunctions here. Let me search because otherwise I need to, here it is. Sorry for the format. It's very unfortunate that this training topic is in between 2 pages. I will try to correct it. I will inform my guys in the EASA rules. So you have an equivalency of malfunction specifically for generation 4, but please go ahead if your generation is not this one. And you will have aircraft system malfunctions, including operations under MEL, with a frequency B, and then here you will have at a frequency B, so that means once a year. Frequency A means every 6 months. Frequency B means every year. Every year you will need to provide equivalence, so malfunctions, 7 a year, in which you will go into the 5 characteristics. Remember, 2 of them are required to be done twice: pilot flying, pilot non-flying. And here is where you will include your malfunction. Can you include these malfunctions in other example scenario elements? Yes. So you could combine, I don't know, you do a scenario in which you address adverse weather with a malfunction that will cover this training topic and the adverse weather at the same time. No, you put engine failure, and then you put crosswind just to make life harder for the pilots, and then you could cover two equivalency of two training topics. But the idea is that you do the characteristics, you determine the malfunctions, you decide which one are going to be in the FSTD, because in the FSTD not all the malfunctions are available, and then you include this in Bravo. There are some equivalents, some example scenario elements that we add in addition. Remember that these are simple examples. This column that this one that I am highlighting here, sorry, these parts that we are highlighting is just a GM, is a guidance material, and we provide some ideas for you. Fuel leak, malfunctions, take off high speed, and others that can be used as an example. So I hope that this covers the question. Is there any more questions? Because I'm seeing the chat popping up, John.
Yeah, there is one in the chat actually, Francisco. So Radu asks, can we use a fixed base simulator level 1 or 2 instead of FFS to experience some of these malfunctions?
So the 7 ones that you need to do every year in the EBT program, it has to be full flight sim. There's a very interesting discussion that we need to have about paragraph Charlie in the AMC. Let me put the AMC 1 or FC 231 post-drop. So here in the equivalency of malfunction, this AMC, oh, sorry, I'm gonna share my screen because I was not sharing. So I don't know if my previous explanation was clear enough, because I was not sharing my screen. This is paragraph Charlie, and in this context, you can use, as you said, a fixed full flight, sorry, a fixed FSTD, a fixed simulator, or other classroom or flight procedure training knowledge or advanced computer-based training and others to train your malfunction. But the 7 ones that I'm referring, then those needs to be covered in the in a full flight sim, because the EBT program currently, it doesn't allow more than a full flight sim on those 36 hours minimum, recommended 48 hours. Just to, I want to show what because in my previous explanation, maybe it was not clear what I was referring to. So in generation 4, you have in the EROPS easy access rules, you have this malfunction, this training topic, Bravo, as I said, is, apologize because it's in between 2 pages and it doesn't look very nice. And here in this Bravo, you can see that this is where you need to introduce your malfunctions, equivalency of malfunctions. You have some example scenario elements that we provide. Again, this is a GM, so this is not part of the AMC. This is not an AMC, that's just GM, and we provide some of them. As I said, you need to provide the 7 malfunctions within this context of this training topic. However, you can combine this training topic with adverse weather and produce an example scenario element in which you do a malfunction, engine malfunction, and then followed by a landing with a crosswind, and that will be the scenario element, the example, the scenario in which you contextualize 2 things together. This example scenario, sorry, this training topic with another one, and in that context, you can combine both things. So, is there any more questions? Because I don't. Otherwise, we will close. I think there's another question.
No, sorry, there is one. Yeah. Jenny Taggart asks, under baseline EBT, is there flexibility in the regulations around ground school recurrent training requirements in order to allow the ground school to work hand in hand with the simulator EBT program and cover items which we've decided that we don't want to cover in the simulator?
Correct. That's absolutely correct, Jenny. you have more details in paragraph India. So you have an AMC or OFC 231, I think it's India. Oh, sorry, I put Delta here. It's my mistake. I think it's India. If not, this okay. So you see, we call it in EBT a performance-based continuous technical ground training. There are more details in the AMC and in the GMs in which you can we can explain. It explains how it has been done, but basically following some evidence, kind of an evidence process, you correlate and you relate your EBT program in the simulator with your EBT program in the ground, you know. So this is fully there's more information obviously in the at the moment in the explanatory note of the ED decision. This is the decision that you see here. Okay, so if you go, I don't know if it's big enough, but you can see here that is detailed here, the ED decision. And there, if you go and search in the EASA website, you will find an explanatory note. So click there and you will have more information about the background and what you just referred to. I see another question from Victor Fernandez. Yeah, the meeting is recorded, Victor. So, and then there will be in the Ops community, as I described at the beginning of my presentation. You can just search EASA Ops Community EBT. You will have a link there in Google, and you can find in a few days. It will take maybe a few days to include this. Another question from Radu Matescu for a mixed EBT training program. Reduced to 36 hours. Can we keep the pattern of 4 hours training, 4 hours evaluation, 4 hours? What do you recommend? So in the EBT mix, again, this is detailed in the explanatory note, but our recommendation when you try to do a mixed implementation program, an EBT mixed implementation program with 36 hours, we recommend that you do 4 simulator sessions of 3 hours. So instead of doing 3 simulator sessions of 4 hours, we recommend that you do 4 simulator sessions of 3 hours. So it will be the same structure as the same number of hours. There are several companies that are doing. If you need more information, Radu, about how other companies are done, please write me to my email or aerops@easa.europa.eu or my francisco.arenasalvarino@easa.europa.eu, and I will find if some of the operators that are doing this specific way allow me to give you their contact, and then you can discuss with these operators and a way to do 36 hours. But our recommendation in EBT Mix, it will be that you do 3 hours simulator session, but 4 simulator sessions rather than 3 simulator sessions of 4 hours each. That will be our recommendation. Holger, if we have to address all remaining non-significant characteristics in ground knowledge training, we would, for our Airbus 350, address more than 500 malfunctions specifically. Is that intended? No, maybe I explained incorrectly. No, so you just determine the malfunctions that put a significant demand on a proficient crew. In those significant demands on a proficient crew, you determine the characteristics, you go to the simulator to some of them, and the other ones are done in a less qualified, in a suitable environment, procedural knowledge. And again, we can discuss further in the panel. For the remaining ones are done traditionally through the one that Jenny has explained me through the that Jenny has made the question. It will be done through the performance-based continuous technical ground training. And as you see, the requirement is knowledge of aircraft system, not specifically one malfunction of the 350. So not all the malfunctions, but it's aircraft system. And then here is awareness of the most significant accident and incident and the occurrences. Then finally, you have all the description of the technical ground training, how you need to do it. But the idea is not, don't get me wrong, you don't need to do those 500 malfunctions under the ground training, okay? I hope that this is well understand, Holger. Otherwise, let us know, and then I give you the, to verbally explain us what you mean. Is there more any questions, John? Because we should finish and give people 8 minutes to rest.
Got pretty much everything there now. Yeah.
Okay.
The last one was
so
Holger's
then,
that you talked about.
Okay,
good.
so then let's hold here.